Welcome to my third video on the Summa Logicae of William of Ockham. Today we'll be going over chapter 3, and the name of this chapter is on the correspondence between vocal and mental terms. Now it won't just be vocal and mental, it'll actually be written and vocal and mental. So written and vocal fall under conventional terms, and mental fall under natural terms. So we're going to be talking about the differences in the correspondence between these two sets of terms. So first, what is shared? What is the same between mental and vocal terms? So verbs are nouns, pronouns, though Ockham is a little bit iffy on pronouns, adverbs, conjunctions, prepositions, case, number, tense, voice, and person. All of these things are things that you have both a vocal and a mental word for, because they all affect the meaning of the sentences and the signification of your sentence. And now for some of the areas where we have vocal and written terms that don't correspond to anything mental. The first one that Ockham gives is participles. For example, work and working, finish and finishing. Ockham thinks that the meaning of these terms is synonymous, and because of that, he doesn't think you need to posit an extra mental word to correspond to these conventional terms that he's talking about. And then he says that maybe the reason for stuff like this is they provide greater beauty in our language. The next section where there's a difference is in gender and declension. So when you refer to something like the moon, it doesn't matter what the gender of your language is. Like, regardless of whether you think you add a female aspect to the moon or a neuter or a male aspect, you're still referring to the same moon. And because of this, the gender isn't actually affecting the meaning of the term that you're using, and so you don't need to posit gender as something which is existing in your mental terms. Another area is declension. Like in Latin, you have the 5 declensions. The declension doesn't change the reference, it just is good grammar. Now, Ockham thinks that there may be a similar case in adjectives and their comparative and superlative forms, such as angry, angrier than, and angriest, though he's uncertain of this, and he says it would take too long to go into and basically just be useless for the purpose of the book that he's currently writing. Now, the next one we have is voice. So these are going to be active, passive, and middle voices. So the active voice would just be something like Bob hit the baseball. The passive voice would be Bob was hit by the baseball. And then, so in the active, the subject is doing something. In the passive, something is being done to him. And then in the middle voice, this one's a little weird. This is when the subject does something to himself. So Bob hit himself. I didn't actually know this was a separate voice until I read the Summa Logicae and I looked into it a little bit, which I thought was kind of interesting. The different voices that don't have corresponding, so all those three, the active, passive, and middle, are all both mental and conventional terms. They exist both in your mind and in conventions. Now, the ones that only exist in conventions are common and deponent verbs. Ockham says that common verbs are reducible to either the active or the passive voice, and deponent verbs are reducible to either the active or the middle voice. And then finally, we have conjugation, which is similar to declension. Different conjugations do not reflect a difference in the meaning of the words that are being used to signify things. So they don't have corresponding mental terms. Yeah, and that'll be all for this episode.